All right, all right. Welcome to episode number 2 of RegenMigrants. I am so thankful for having Lana on the episode today. I met Lana through a conversation that I had with somebody, and they said, "Hey, there's this fantastic person you need to meet." And that's when I reached out to her, and I've joined some of your courses and workshops, and they're amazing. And so you were on the list when I thought, okay, I need somebody to speak to. You're right up there with all of your work that you do for community and all the work that you do to creating healing spaces. So without me trying to create a bio for you, I thought I'd let you introduce yourself. So Lana, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And oh, what's to tell? That this is always the tricky part when introducing oneself. So I consider myself as a community alchemist. I'm a Filipina that's now based in the Netherlands for the past 16 years. So I've been away from the homeland for quite some time. And my work is within the intersections of community design, learning experience design, and promoting healing and healing centered ecosystems. Uh, One of the biggest, advocacy that I have is really how might we, as individuals, as society, be able to be in kapwa with each other. And kapwa in Filipino or in Tagalog means our shared humanity. So how might we be able to see, myself, how might you be able to see yourself in me, and how might I be able to see you in me? And and this for me is the essence that I would want to contribute more on when it comes to the work that I do with different organizations. And part of it is really to create a society where all of us can see our shared humanity.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that's exactly the reason I reached out to you, because as I've been doing a lot of sustainability work and environmental work, I've come to realize that we have a lot of the solutions that we might need. We have all of the knowledge that we need, that the climate crisis is a real thing, that the biodiversity crisis is looming against us, but that the real thing that we need to make a change is learn how to connect, how to relate, how to co-create, and how to keep that momentum, and especially when things get a little bit hard. So I'd love to kind of hear from you a little bit about your work and what you're really trying to do when you talk about a community alchemy. What does that mean? And I love how you're bringing in concepts from the homeland as well. How are you mixing those two and supporting communities?
Yeah. So community alchemy came, I think that was more than 5 years ago, when somebody was asking me like, what's the best words to describe the effect or the impact that you have when you're working with different communities, when you're working with different founders, and when I'm working with different organizations. And I just realized I love transformation. I love seeing the shift in people. And that's when the alchemy came in. Like, oh, it's the meeting, it's the meeting of two individuals or three individuals, and nobody stays the same. And I love how you framed a while ago that everything is really relational, right? It's about the relationships. So for me, community alchemist is really around looking at how are we, yeah, contributing to the social fabric, and how are we contributing to each other's tapestry, and weaving in different wisdom, different practices, and different ways of knowing that is not not only geared to the dominant narratives that we've come across with. I grew up from in the Philippines, where we've had 333 years of Spanish colonization, and that's just the Spanish colonization. So we've had such a history of um, being told who we're not. And for me, the work is to reconnect to the essence of who we really are, not just as individuals, but as society. And like what you said, we all have the knowledge, we all have the wisdom that's already inherently there. And so for me, I see the work that I'm doing is steering people gently back to their own essence. Like in I think it was in The Little Prince, that when love is the process of me leading you gently back to yourself. So how can we get into that? How can we get into that process of leading each other gently back to ourselves?
Oh, I love to hear that. And I'm learning how to feel my feelings in my body. That's a big thing for me that I didn't know was a thing, but apparently I need to do that. And I just feel very like lots of love and just thankfulness and gratefulness for everything you've expressed, because I think I've been going through my own process of decolonization of my thoughts and my needs and my shoulds, along with kind of the deconstruction of my religion. So I also lost, I think, my spirituality when I lost my religion, and trying to build up that a little bit. And I definitely feel like there's so much that connects kind of Asia with Latin America. The same thing goes with like Eastern Europeans. We have this like really strong community feeling. And in addition, I feel that we have this a little bit of a spiritual thing, which nobody thinks too much about, but we all accept. And that's a thing that we might leave or change as we progress through maybe more Western countries. What do you think have you brought from your roots that you see is missing in the place that you're at, and what do you see that in the location that you're at, what have you learned that you wish you could also take back to maybe family back home, or people that are doing really great work back home as well?
Yeah. So you've already mentioned it, how much of our culture very much around others, and how we value being in community, how we value family. So that's a big part of what I've taken in now that I've been living in Europe for quite a long time already. And within my own family structure, parts of our family culture is really bringing in Filipino values like pakikipagkapwa, pakikiramdam, which is the listening with the third ear, or and how you are um, being considerate with others. So there's quite a lot of practices, Filipino practices, that I've brought in within, not just within my family unit, but also when I'm sharing things with others. As much as possible, I try to bring in more Filipino psychology as a way of framing and as a way of letting others know that there's other ways of thinking and perspectives that they can also apply and also use in the different settings that they're in. So with that, yeah, there's a lot of the values, the core pivotal values that I've brought in. When it comes to the values that I've learned to appreciate, given where I am right now, is one is all about understanding the self, and also the feelings that you've shared, like, knowing about one's own feelings and not just thinking about others. And this is also why a couple of years ago, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, one of the things that I started practicing is, and using as a language also for myself, is how can I get in a place of self-fullness, and really moving away from the language of selfishness and selflessness, which is very much what I grew up in. In the Philippines, you're guilt tripped to think of yourself as selfish if you're just thinking about yourself, or or if you keep on giving and not having boundaries, then you're so selfless. So for me, I've learned, being here and interacting with different cultures as well, I learned the value of how can I bring my self-fullness in the spaces that I inhabit. And by self-fullness, it means I understand what my needs are. I understand what I'm feeling. I understand where my boundaries are, and that I can articulate that to people. And I also know that as I say no to other people, it means I'm trying to meet my needs. And how can I make other people know about that? So a big part of this practice around selffulness really came from an understanding of nonviolent communication or compassionate communication. And that has helped me integrate both worlds in the sense of I don't want to live in a society which is so hyper individualist, to the point that it's so painful not to see community, and not to see how, the value of caring for each other. And at the same time, I grew up also in a society where it was too much of valuing and caring for others that we forgot about ourselves, and that it's also detrimental for us to really take in our oxygen mask first. And this knowledge of putting in your oxygen mask first is not about being selfish, but rather it's being self-full. So when I am in my fullness, I can give and I can share and I can work within that fullness. And people can also bask in the energy of that fullness because it's there and it's palpable. And when I do that, when I enter into spaces where I know that I can show up in my fullness, then there's more magic, that happens. There's more alchemy that is created.
I love that as well because, as you say, we're always trying to live in a balance, right? It's always an equilibrium between, you can't, you're too in an individualistic society and you're thinking about having kids and you're like, but it takes a village. And so you're not sure, and all of the strengths, and both partners maybe want to work. And there's always those kind of things. But then you also think of, okay, well, in places that are very family oriented, there's this, oh, I have to live up to family standards and I have to do family values, and so it's very interesting. And there was even a new Pixar movie that came out, and I realized that it was talking about the immigrant life. I need to find the name, but it was exactly that. She didn't realize that she wanted to do something because she had to take care of her father's shop. So that kind of need to continue legacy and keep things going. I think it's beautiful that you've found a way to balance yourself a little bit in the middle, right? I'm sure it's an ongoing thing to work on. And making this change for yourself as well, what practically in kind of your day to day have you seen that has been super, super challenging about either being where you are or going back home? Because we all know that reverse culture shock is even more strange. But what are maybe some challenges that you faced, and you've found some way to explore what can come out of them as you grow as well?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say the challenges that I face and continue to face is, having a foot on both worlds. That there are times where when I express more of the power of communities and what we can do when we care for each other and when we collaborate, that there are certain audience that resonates with it, and then there's also some who would say no, I am my own world, and I have agency with myself, and I'll do whatever I want. So there would, I would say there would always be people who just think and process things differently. And yeah, that can be in the form also of systems, like the educational practices here is very much different from the educational practices in the Philippines. So how to merge that, given that my kids are also within the system. It's the same with the medical system. So this is where the values are really showing up. And I would say it's a challenge, and at the same time, it's a great opportunity to really recalibrate on what's really important, and what is it that I would want to live as a legacy rather than leaving a legacy behind, so that it's a continuous iterative process. So for me, it's a question of, if a value is challenged, then I get to reflect on it of, is this something that I would really want to cultivate more, or is this something that perhaps I need to re-examine? And in doing so, it allows me to be in integrity with what what I would want myself to be at any given moment, and how I would want to be in any given moment.
I think I'm gonna have to start a Lana quote book because there's so many on there that I loved already. Because I've been talking about leaving a legacy for a while. I was in a volunteer organization that was a big thing that we said. What do you want to leave as your legacy? I love the idea of living your legacy as well, and being able to reiterate and learn as you grow, and not have that maybe, oh, I didn't do that well. But what I've noticed from you in all of your educational content that you also put out is that you make it very visual. And again, that appeals very much to me. I'm also very much a visual learner. And you talked about systems. There can be a book with 300 pages and it's telling me the secrets of the universe. I will not understand. But if you give it into a little graph, maybe it has an emoji or something, I got it. I understood. So how do you go about creating this content to really resonate with people, and especially people that have different abilities, different understandings? We're talking neurodivergence as well. I love that your work goes there. How do you best design your work so it reaches people in the way that they need to
Yeah.
understand it?
So it goes into, I would say, one, it's because of one of the strengths that I have. I have such a strong systemizer brain that for me it's so quick to see connections, or be able to systemize things in a specific structure. So that helps a lot. So you can feed me well, you can't feed me with information that I don't want to consume, but if it's something that I'm very interested in, I might have 30 open tabs related to one topic, and then just reading and going through the different materials, and be able to synthesize it. So that's one of the ways in which my strengths really show up and help. And then I took a course on making thinking visible from Project Zero, the Harvard School of Education. And that really opened me up to, oh, how are we making it easier for the learners to be able to see how they're thinking and how they're processing things. um and because of that workshop, of that training, well, that course, it allowed me to, I would say, encourage myself and challenge myself that when I'm processing certain things, or when I'm synthesizing certain things, is okay, how can I make this in a way that allows for people to, yeah, understand how they're processing things for themselves as well. So for me, it's a way to be able to encourage people to make their own processes and thinking and perspectives be more visible for them. And at the same time, it allows for, knowing that there's a certain brevity to certain things, but there's also certain depth to certain things. So it's not, the scaling of information varies in the different materials that I'm creating. So like right now, I'm in the process of putting together the healing centered ecosystems framework, which I've written about already. Yet for me, it's like that's the first scenario. It's like this, I'm plotting the map. But then the next scenario would be, now how can I create it with depth of, like, what are practices around it, what are the language around it, what are the different examples and inspirations that we can draw from. So for me, I like getting into those different scales, where it might be that I present something that is easy for people to understand, and that provides awareness building. And then there might be that there are materials that I create that is more for, in Satyr's change model, more for integration and practice, for people who really want to sink into this learning about this particular topic or this particular theme, and would want to do it not just with themselves but also with others. So more of a, how can we learn together, and explore these themes collaboratively, is also something that I encourage a lot with the work that I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because one of the things that I see of you is you're a person that brings a lot of new topics and new terminology and things to my foreground and what I'm seeing and learning about without me necessarily needing to deep dive into everything. But a lot of the things that you post, like I've never heard that word before, or I've never heard that combination of sentence before, and I really appreciate it because you give me new things to conceptualize and maybe put into my work or think about. And I'd love to know what's top of mind for you today. What are maybe concepts that you're either diving deeper in or you're at the surface level but are really engaging and you have those 30 pages open? What's really top of mind for you today?
Yeah, so uh I'm right now, because in the healing centered ecosystems framework, I have the first pillar, or first commitment, is care. So right now I'm designing a toolkit on how to design for care, for teams, for organizations. And with that, because I see care as really the bedrock for activism and altruism. So for every advocacy, social change that we'd want to happen in the world, it at the at the deep ends of it is the care. So how can we provide more awareness around who do we care for and what do we care about, and what is necessary for us to deepen our understanding of who we care for and what we care about. So right now that's the main thing in the list of what I'm working on. And then there's another, you've mentioned it, with neurodiversity. So I'm part of the Neurodiversity Foundation, uh and with that, we've created, last May, I co-wrote a toolkit on what's wrong with you. And right now, we're in the process of finishing another toolkit, is what's alive in you. So how to go from camouflaging to courage would be the theme. So those are the two main projects that I'm involved in right now.
I'm so excited for what's alive in you already because what's strong with you hit me so hard that I really already wanted to apply it in a workshop that I was doing because it's such a impactful question that why haven't I asked myself that before? Even if there's kind of different ways that people come about it, and what's alive with you as well, because I'm learning, okay, how can I be Brazilian Lila in Germany? How can I be the German Lila that I've acquired over the last 6 years in Brazil? And all of these other parts of me as well, my corporate life, my new kind of entrepreneurial living, trying to figure out life and balancing it with what do I want people to see and
Mm,
how comfortable am I being seen? That was another one that I
mm,
heard a couple
yeah.
months ago. And I mean, I like I said, I would love to stay here and continue having these conversations with you, Lana, because honestly, you're so important to me. I've never met you in person, but you're one of those internet people that I'm like, oh my God, if she's ever real, I have to find a way to go and see her. So I'm hoping for a day that I get to see you in person, and just wanted to really be super, super grateful for your time. But before I go, I have this habit of asking people to maybe give some advice, some wisdom, some knowledge, or just maybe share a thing that you think would be useful for people to learn from you, and that you're trying to keep your legacy alive or living your legacy as well. And I'll let you close it out so people get to
Oh,
hear the very last words
wow.
from you. So don't feel too intimidated. You're beautiful with your words. We can take some time. We can take a breath. No
Can I
urgency. So
can I read a poem?
of course, please.
This is a poem that I wrote a couple of months ago. Okay. And this, I haven't read this publicly like this, so this would be interesting how it
Oh,
steers certain things.
thank you so much for doing it. So over to you. Thank you, Lana.
I am the dream of the matriarchs before me, women who toiled, labored, and hoped, women who brought us life, cradled us in their arms, sung us lullabies. From their lips we heard the call to freedom, to strive for what life can bring. From their hips we moved in rhythms and cycles in spirit, clamoring for the possibilities which generations before have always dreamed of, a better life for the ones to come. I am the dream of the matriarchs before me, those who resisted, those who took their ground, those who lived for me to stand in this place, in this moment, in this time. For all the sweat, tears, and pains, through all the joys, celebrations, and strengths, both I carry in me. I am not only their losses, I am also their gains. I am not only their faded dreams, I am also their hopes. I am not only their sufferings, I am also the breath of life that carried on, amidst adversities, amid systems placed to marginalize, amidst years of oppression, amidst the pressure to succumb. I am the dream of the matriarchs before me, paving the way for the generations to come.
Thank you, Lana.
My pleasure.